Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium for the 12th of May 2020. Today we're going to go over a couple of trades that we've been in, which were triggered by the currency strength histogram. We've had a pretty remarkable week. Actually, we've had a pretty remarkable past few months, which is quite exciting. And the histogram was released to the community the beginning of last week. And so we're entering the second week of use and getting a lot of positive feedback from users, and I think it's all very exciting. And so now we have, I think, probably for the first time in a very long time, an actual concrete use for currency strength. Because a lot of people have been using currency strength indicators for many years, but they've been very difficult to use because at the time you look at currency strength and it's telling you to buy one currency and sell the other. And if you were to get into a position based on this information, I mean, currency strength would typically turn around and then you would get stopped out. And so this is just a really nice way to enable us to use this information to become more profitable. So it's very exciting indeed. So here we have a few trades. This was on the Swiss franc Japanese yen. Let me have a look. Yeah, the Swiss franc Japanese yen. And we were pulled into this trade. We had a couple of them. We were pulling around this area here, and we took it again down here. Okay, so we had an entry to buy here, and the exit was here, which was reached nicely. We had another entry here, and the exit was just here. And you can see here that it seems to be continuing to wriggle higher. But when you look at currency strength like this, if you go to the slightly larger time frames, that was the hourly chart, you may notice that we are actually reacting at a 4-hour demand here. Okay, and this is demand because when price left here, we managed to consume this area of supply. The beginning of the sell zone was the high of this candle just here. We've moved through it, and our price kind of nested nicely into that 4-hour area of demand, and now we appear to be moving away from that area. Okay, so we had, two pretty remarkable trades. The first one was, here, let me see where that goes back to. Yeah, so that was the beginning of the buy zone here. The slingshot was pulled back, telling us where the edge is. We went here, we went up to this area here, price came down, and now we're having another go. So two entries here. We had pretty decent trade. What size is that? We got 120 pips out on that one, and on this one here, we got about 100 pips here. So two remarkable trades. And here on my FX book, you can see that we had, here are our trades. We had the American dollar Canadian dollar, which we sold. This is a 4-hour currency strength histogram, divergence, and then we had a Cad franc, the franc yen, and the euro Japanese yen. And so all of these were long, and this was the short. You can see that here's a short, and here we have the longs just here. And these trades, you can see here they're taking a little bit of time to materialize, and that's because we have the distribution of liquidity on a relatively large time frame. And so my entries are typically going to be on the 4-hour chart. And so if a price feeds into the beginning of a buy or sell zone, then I have to be patient. I have to sit tight. All I have to do is ensure that I have a nice wide stop, and you just have to let price do its thing. Because I've mentioned many times in the past is the distribution of liquidity is a very slow process, especially when you start looking at these bigger time frames. So you have to sit on your hands and just let the trade do its thing. And if you're patient, well, then you get paid handsomely. And so the trade on the euro Japanese yen, this took almost 3.2 days. Here we had 3.2 days here as well, and here we had just under 3 days on the Canadian dollar Swiss franc, and this one was a little bit faster, just over 1 day. Okay, and so this just goes to show that you should really be willing to get into these trades and not fiddle. And I know it's quite difficult because if you consider the fact that when price pokes into an area on the 1-minute chart, it'll poke into it and then it leaves. And sometimes it comes back, but sometimes it doesn't. But when you're considering trades on these bigger time frames, you just have to wait and you have to just let it do its thing. And so patience is paramount to success. Okay, so let's go back to the charts and have a look. So you can also see here not a lot of trading last month, April. Not a lot going on. We were doing a lot of traveling in April, trying to kind of keep ourselves the whole family busy. You know, being stuck at home is nice in short stints, but it's also nice to mix it up with some traveling. So I didn't have a lot of chart time there, so we ended up traveling quite a bit, seeing as much of this beautiful island as possible before we pull the plug on our Bali project and move to Southern Europe. Okay, so let's have a look at the charts and see what's going on. Let's start off by deleting all of these objects, object list. So if you want to get rid of the object, you right click, you go to object list, you mark one, and you press Control A, or list all, Control A, and then hit delete, and it'll delete all the visual objects on the chart. And then you have a nice fresh chart, okay? And the software will attach the objects or draw the objects that it sees valid. Then you have a nice fresh chart that you can begin with. But let's have a look at the Australian dollar, American dollar. And before we do anything else, I think it would be a good idea to see what's going on these bigger time frames. So we're going to go to weekly chart for that. And you can see here that we've had enormous push lower. Price poked into this into the buy zone here. You can see we had a nice reaction. So the histogram would have gotten you into that trade at a very, very advantageous price. And then we had a huge rejection. And now it seems that we're retreating. We're moving to the opposite side of the market. And so you can begin to kind of wonder what's going to go on now. Well, it's difficult to say what's going to go on, but what we can do is we can have a quick look at the cycles of this chart, and we can see what has happened historically. Okay, so we do have quite a lot of cyclic data. We have kind of up, a very sharp rejection. We got another one that goes up, and then a gradual rejection, very small, bullish, a push higher, and then prices going down. And so, I mean, we can expect, based on what we've seen historically, the price forms some kind of bottom or a top at these swing points here. Okay, and now we're down here, so we can expect with a high degree of probability that this is going to move higher. The price is going to move higher from here. Will this happen? We don't know. Nothing is certain. But what we can do is we can just look at the historical cycles. We can analyze them, and we can consider what current cycles are going to do based on what's happened in the past. And also notice here that we do have a really nice currency strength divergence. We have price pushing lower into weekly demand. This is the yellow box just here, and this was drawn on the chart years ago. Okay, so years ago you were told that you should buy the Australian dollar, American dollar at this price point. Price came to it -1 pip, and price turned around. At the same time, price was feeding into this area of currency strength, negative variant, and it turned around very nicely. So you were alerted of this trade years ago. Okay, when I talk about years ago, I'm talking, I mean, over 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, you were told to buy at this price level here. Okay, because I mean, this line, this rectangle was drawn on the chart back here, and this is 2006, and I'm guessing that price goes back a few more years. Maybe 20 years ago, you were told that you should buy the Australian dollar, American dollar at this price point. So that's pretty remarkable. Good. So what we can do is we can just consider to look, the price is going to go up. We do have, as I mentioned, price moving lower, but the histogram, so the strength of the Australian dollar is picking up across the board relative to the American dollar. So that's telling us that we may be having a shift in momentum. And if you consider the commitment of traders data, I think you'll find that this lines up beautifully with that. So this is showing us that flows are slowly moving back into the Australian dollar, and they are moving out of the American dollar. Okay, and you can see this picture being drawn right before our eyes. Okay, so let's consider that, and then we'll go to the smaller time frames and see if we can find something else. Let me reset this. Okay, so we have this going on, and you can see that price is reacting at this area just here. So price dropped off very forcefully. We had an area, we had a sell zone just here. Price poked into it. We went through it. We rejected. We came through it once more, and now we're kind of sitting just below this area, kind of figure out what we're going to do. But if you look at price, where do we have opposing areas of demand? Well, we have this here, just here, this is an interesting area because when price left here, we moved through this. Okay, so we had something here. See, it was tested once, price rallied, accumulated, and we cut through it. So this is gone. The area that removed it is this one just here. So price will very likely have a bounce at the 0.6200 area. And below that we have this one here, how price rallied, moved sideways, we popped north, we had the slingshot pullback, and then we left. So we have another one just below price here. So we do have a few areas that we could watch. These are certainly going to be on my watch list for the time being, so I'm just going to put an alarm in there so I'm informed when price returns. And again, you don't have to jump into the trade. You don't have to put a limit order immediately. You can wait for price to poke into the area and then see how price reacts as it pokes into this buy zone just here, and then decide what's going to happen later on. You can also look at currency strength information and look to that for confirmation. Okay, so let's have a look at the British pound American dollar. The British pound American dollar. Let's have a look at the major flows for this currency. They look kind of similar, don't they? How we've had some serious pushes lower. We can see a similar thing being told. We have prices are pushing lower, but the strength of the American dollar is weakening relative to the British pound. Okay, and so you can see this pretty clearly. Okay, how price does this. We have a strong push lower in price, so price pushes down, rejection. Here we have another really strong push down and a rejection, but we have kind of slightly shallower pushes down here. I'm just going to this kind of an ugly one so far. So you can see that we have maybe an interest on holding this price, supporting this price, and maybe following it a little bit higher. So you take this information with you to the smaller time frames. Okay, before we do that, I want to see if there is anything that price is reacting on, if there was an area of demand that price bounced on. Let's mark that off and have a look. So we'll scroll back. Actually, no, I don't have anything. This is as low as the price has been, and this is all the data that I have. I've already looked on this particular broker. And so we had super rejection. Let's go down to the 4-hour chart and see if we can find something that might be interesting. And so note that we had currency strength divergence when price came to this area here. So when on the close of this red candle here, we were told that price is looking for a bottom. We found the bottom very clearly. You can see the bottom just here, and now price rallied and moved away. And also notice that we did have we had this here. I'm going to draw it like that because this is where price tested it. Okay, it was tested once, it was tested twice, and now it is gone. And the area that removed it is this one here, and this is the one that the software marked off nicely for us, so we could mark it off like that. Okay, if we go to the hourly chart, maybe it's for a bit of clarity at that area. Let's scroll back and have a gander. Yeah, and you can see here. So you can see price pull back, rally, accumulation, rally, accumulation, rally. Parent, child. So I mean, I would go something like this. I'd probably want a nice big stop for that, so I'd give it that. You could also move it just below like this, but we do have, I mean, there are a few areas here. Here we have a parent and a child. Parent, child. Mark that off. Okay, price went through the child, it tested the parent, and then it left. Price rallied, moved sideways, slingshot was pulled back, and we popped north. So we do have something here as well. Okay, and then we have price kind of messing around there, rally, accumulation, rally. Let's see if we can get some more clarity on the smaller time frames, and just in here, this little price nodule. And can we see anything? Not a whole lot of clarity still. Price has traded in this area for quite some time, so I'd be inclined to let price move a little bit deeper at this price point here. And so I'm going to go back to the 4-hour. I don't need to fiddle around too much in the small time frames, but you can see that we have price came up here, we rallied, we pulled up, the slingshot was pulled back, and then we left. So we do have like a pretty interesting area below price, and it looks like this. Okay, something like that. Okay, slingshot. First of all, you have to focus on the move that managed to move beyond these tests high. Okay, so you had this resistance, resistance, and then we had closes through these areas here. The slingshot was pulled back to this area here prior to the departure. So I'd be keen on buying at a price no more expensive than the lows of this pullback, because this is essentially the beginning of the buy zone. So the what is that? What is that? That's the 116.43. So I'd be pretty comfortable beginning to scale in at that price point there. Okay, let's have a look on the daily chart and see what that looks like. Yeah, I mean, that's just really nice and low, which I like. So I'd be comfortable looking down there. Yeah, but that would be kind of a shorter term, shorter to intermediate term, so some days, a day-long position, a few day-long position, because we do have price pushing down and we do have rejection. So a revisit to these lows would be also really attractive, especially if price managed to move down to this variant negative. That'd be a very nice combination of price patterns and histogram confirming at that price level. So that'd be interesting, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Let's have a look at the Euro Japanese Yen. See, we're out of these trades. We bought at the bottom on the small time frame. We bought just here. Just price poked into this. We rallied north. If we have a look on the smaller time frames, you can see on the 4 hour it did the same thing at around here. So if we mark that off the low, oops, it's not going to help us. Let's do here. So from around here, see, this is pretty much where price went to. Okay, so we got in around here, and now price is wriggling and testing this area here, and our target was around this area here. Our price is wriggling north. So this is the trade that we had this month, and I'm pretty confident this is going to continue to wriggle higher. And you can see as we had this price push away, the slingshot was pulled back, and we had the trading occur below these lows, and it originated from this area here. So the beginning of the sell zone is, I'm just going to mark off, it doesn't really matter how high, like this. Okay, so this is the beginning of the sell zone. So when price comes to about the 11900 area, I think we're going to see maybe some reactions up at these areas, and the Pipnotic supply and demand software found these areas nicely for us. You can see we have this one here, which was tested, and then the one above, which is not tested. So we just have like a kind of like a cluster of sell zones at this price point here, which lines up nicely with the beginning of this sell zone here. Right, let's have a look at the Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. Okay, so we were looking, this is interesting because we formed this base, we had this, price is moving lower, we had the currency string histogram moving higher, we had lows kind of coming from around here. Okay, and so we had the buy zone was here first of all, and this is where price went. Price went a little bit deeper, as expected. It's seeking liquidity to do what? To drive price higher. Now price is having a slow wriggle north. And if you look up here, I mean, there's some stuff going on here, but it's looking pretty ugly. If you look at this, it's pretty ugly. This is pretty ugly. This is kind of the only one I think would be interesting, but we can't really see on this time frame, so we'll have to zoom out and have a look. We want to find those tests. We have some tests here. Mark these. See, we have this little area just here. It's tested once, twice, and the area that removed it, well, there's something here. So if we zoom in, and we have this area here, which is good. And this is pretty cool because price came down, and then we managed to trade above that area to this area here. This is at the 8150 area, and this is when we found sellers, and then price moved lower. So this is the beginning of the sell zone for this currency pair, just here, and it lines up nicely with that little 4 hour supply rectangle just here. And so from here and up, I think we're probably going to see this come down shorter term. For the time being, we're pretty low. Let's have a look on the daily. Have a look at the daily histogram readings. Yeah, we're pretty damn low, aren't we? Look at this. I mean, we're really, really pushing lower. And when price sticks like this, I mean, let's have a look on the weekly. I've got to see where we are within the context of the big picture. Okay, this is not all that bad if you consider where we have been historically. We're just revisiting the lows, which is the beginning of the buy zone. Price went a little bit deeper as expected, and you can see, notice here that we do have, if we look at the lows here, this is pretty close to where price turned around at this area here. So if price manages to have another push, and we manage to revisit these kind of this negative variant, then I think we could definitely see people begin to buy. Okay, but short term, I think we could probably move higher from where we are. And you can see that, let's go on the 4-hour chart, they were already starting to see a market structure fail. So we had trend line breaks, and the area that caused that is down here. Okay, but we do need price to move above this before we do that, and we haven't done that just yet. So we want to see this. Removed before we can entertain the idea of price doing something like that. Okay, but we do have that. This needs to go, and there's nothing in here. There's a little bit of supply here, but it's been tested. The gap has been closed, which was there. We might have a bounce at this area here, and there's not a lot in there. And then the first one I think is interesting is just up here. Okay, so this is at about the 80, oh, it's tough to see, 81, 80-ish area, ish. You know, I can just use a trend line and we can see. Save myself the trouble of straining my eyes. So 8180, no, 8150 to the 8200 area. So I think at this area here we could definitely see some interested market participants. Okay, let's have a look at the pound Australian dollar. We missed this trade. This a while ago. This one here, we missed this trade here, unfortunately by about a pip. The price went up. Where did we go? We went to the opposing side of the market. Notice how tests. This is important. We had a test. What area, what price level did price have to go back to before it managed to trade below it? This one right here. Okay, so this is telling us where the beginning of the sell zone is. This is the area that we sell at, and this worked out beautifully, absolutely beautifully. So, I mean, we would have probably started to get in at the high of this pullback here, and price went through it, and we sat on this area for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 4. That's 24. So one day, 24 hours before price started to break away. So that might have required a little bit of patience, because, I mean, like I said earlier on, the distribution of liquidity is a slow process. So you have to be a little bit patient in a situation like that. But it's best not to meddle. It's best to get your kids and go for a walk, or just get away from the charts and just see how things pan out. But you can see that we are looking pretty negative on this time frame. So let's go to the weekly and have a look at the macro flows. Yeah, we're getting pretty high. You can see, geez, man, you can see how. Okay, so we had these. This is a micro area. How we had price come down, test, and then come up, and then move away. So you want to look for these big moves and where they came from. And this big move came from here and here. The software drew this for us. When I say the software drew this, I mean the Pipnotic supply and demand drew this rectangle on this chart. 1, 2, 3. It drew this for us. 1, 2, 3. And the 7th, I should make sure I get these right, the 7th of February, October, November, yeah, the 7th of February, 2016. So about 4 years ago, the Pipnotic supply and demand software was telling you to sell at this price point here. Okay? 4 years ago, you were told to sell here. What happened when price went there? We poked into it barely. We sat at the area for a week, so that would require a little bit of patience, and as they say in Danish, ice in your stomach. And then price rejected and left very, very quickly. Okay, then you ask, I mean, where's price going to go? We don't really know where price is going to go, but what we can do is we can look at the same stuff on the opposing side of the market. So if we look at a place where price had a tough time moving through, so we had, let's use a trend line for this. We had this. Testing, 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 testing. Price didn't manage to go through it, and then price managed to move through it. And so you can see that it all originated from here. Okay, so this has been an interesting area. This is at the 177 area. This is where price came to, so the beginning of the buy zone is going to be there. So, that's difficult to see. Okay, I can't see that. You'll have to zoom in yourselves. Sorry, but it's less. It's just below the 177 area. That's a really nice area there. Okay, and the reason, once again, why this is interesting is because we had an area that was historically operating or functioning as resistance. Let's just mark these off so you can see them all. We had a test, rejection, test, rejection, test, rejection, test, rejection, rejection. Then price finally stuck on it, and then it pulled back, and then it shot up north. So we do have something that's very interesting. We could actually take this one, we could draw another one in there, and that other one would be here. So that would also be an interesting area, the 180.50 area. That'd be an interesting area here, and that is because this is the move. This is the area of demand that caused price to trade above these highs here. So the area of the level of resistance, and so the slingshot was pulled back and then it left. Okay, and so this would be an interesting area from around this area and down. I like this area here as well, and the super delicious one is, so obviously, this one right here. This is a very nice area. But I'd like this to happen at the same time that we have currency strength divergence. So we have the histogram kind of approaching these very, very high, or in this case, very low negative variant levels. Okay, so that'd be interesting to see. Be very interesting to see. But for the timing, we need price to come a little bit lower, which it has not done. And so the trade, if you manage to get into that trade, the weekly trade, you could certainly hold that for a little bit longer, I think. Although this is a pretty interesting area, so we're probably going to have a bit of a bounce at this area. So you'll probably have to stomach a retracement to supply, and then potentially another move lower here. Okay, so we'll leave that at that. But again, use the histogram to find these trades for you, and you can do this simply by you set up the software, and you put on the enable alarm for all symbols. Make sure you've downloaded all of the historical data. This is super important, otherwise you'll get misinformation, which will get you into trades that you don't want to be in. You go like this and you just click it. So we'll let it run, and then we'll have a look at the daily and then the weekly, and then we'll wrap it up for today. So while we're crunching numbers, I don't think we're probably going to get any hits here, nothing. And let's have a look at the daily. We'll probably get something here in the weekly, I think, as well. Let's have a look, see if there's anything that looks interesting. Yeah, so the Cad Japanese Yen. Okay, let's go and look at the weekly. The Cad Japanese Yen, that's the one we looked at where price was really low. That's it. That's all we have at the moment on those time frames. So the Cad Japanese Yen, this is the one we looked at a second ago, and this is the one that's really low and kind of hanging around. If you go to the daily chart, you can see it. You can see the price is kind of hanging around these lows here, and so we can expect price to want to move higher, because we have, it's very difficult to drive a currency pair further lower when you have currency strength histogram readings like this. Okay, so the path of least resistance is up, is higher. Okay, you can see, super clearly here that we had the beginning of the buy zone. Price tested it once, price came, we tested the child, the next test came in, and we moved deeper into the buy zone down to this area here, and this is where we found support for this, okay, inside this area of daily demand at a place when the histogram has moved through the negative variant, or the variant negative. Okay, so this is an interesting area, and so we were talking about these levels earlier on last week actually. anticipation that price is going to move higher away from these areas. As a matter of fact, Cad Yen, no, I didn't get that one on. I thought I did. Cad Franc I got, but this was just a beautiful trade. And if you look at the Cad Franc, it looks pretty similar. So look at that, and we'll put this one on. Pretty similar, kinda. where we have kind of the beginning of the buy zone is here. Price went a little bit deeper, then we left. So that happened at this area here. Okay, and this was happening at a point where we had a very negative histogram. Okay, so the price is going to have a difficult time moving down, continuing to move low. And we do have this, which is liquidity void, thin liquidity just here. So price could pretty easily kind of move up and through this area here, like so. Okay, and rebalance price. We'll have to wait and see. But good, I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, please comment in the video or send them to the main Discord channel. Thanks for watching.